Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerds with Badges. As usual, I'm half asleep here at work, about to start my shift in about, well, it's so my audio is off. Anyway, it's 9:25, so I will probably start getting ready at about maybe like a quarter till, because I got to go and change into my jacket. Actually, I mean, I have my regular security long sleeve shirt, but it gets a little cool around here at night, so I usually just head to my locker, just grab my jacket and my security hat, go get my equipment, my walkie-talkie, my iPhone or whatever phone that we use a phone to do our detects when we walk around, do our patrols, um, and the keys, also the keys to unlock the doors that we do have access to. Um, I felt really compelled to do a video today because of something that interesting that happened to me yesterday. Now, I remember last year a friend of mine really was telling me I should really learn how to use AI because it could help me a lot as an artist and a writer. Now, for all that don't know, I'm a published writer. I got my first taste of publication when I lived back in North Carolina, my hometown. There was a local radio station that if the police would come at this time with the sirens. This is Santa Monica, so it's a busy street. I shouldn't be surprised. But anyway, when I lived in North Carolina, there was a local radio station. I would go there sometimes and just kind of hang out. And the radio station was called the God, I can't remember the name of the radio station. Oh my God! But they put out a newspaper. I think it was weekly or bi-weekly. It was a newspaper called the M Voice, the Minority Voice, and the person who owned the radio station was really really cool. His name was Jim Rouse, and I was able to convince him to publish some of my work in his paper. I think it was a comic strip that I did, and he also interviewed me on his show because he had like a show that would come on public access TV, I guess it was. Um, so he interviewed me, and it's interesting because like sometime after that broadcast, this kid saw me in a comic book shop and actually, wanted my autograph. I was there with a friend of mine buying some comic books. This comic book store I used to always go to in North Carolina called um, Book Trader. I used to always go there and buy my books. And so I was just really just surprised that this kid wanted my autograph. But it was cool though. Um, so when I came to Los Angeles in '93, I wanted to get some more. I always wanted to get published as a comic book writer, really, or a comic book artist. I used to draw comic books all the time when I was a youngin'. Used to make my own little comic books. Just guess it just led to me to where I am now. So when I came to California, I lived in San Jose for a few months before I came to Los Angeles in '93, and I lived in a shelter for a couple of years. It took me a little while to decide what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, I knew I needed a job, and I had to get practical. You got to have money coming in. So I took some security training. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I wanted to get published, and there was a LGBT. I don't think it was called LGBT. It was at the time. All these letters. Anyway, the magazine was called SBC, which was the initials of the publisher's name was Stanley Bennett Clay. And I went and submitted some of my work, and he's like, your work isn't the quality that we looking for. Maybe come back later when you get better. And so this is in 90, maybe like 93. So I think it was about 90, 98. I think it was around 98, 97. I wrote So I used to write short stories at work sometimes, just to kind of like relieve the boredom. It was my creative juices were flowing at night. So this one little story I wrote was, it's like a little funny story based on someone that I actually met. And I kind of, what do you call it? What is the word I'm looking for when you add something to a story to make it more exciting? But anyway, embellish, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's close enough to what I'm trying to say. So I submitted this story, and Stanley liked it. And he ended up publishing, I think it was 3 stories he published by me. One was about these 2 guys that met in a supermarket. The second one was about a guy who years after having a falling out with someone who was homophobic, I guess they kind of like reconciled. And I can't remember what the other story was about. My God, my brain. I can't remember what the other story was about. I think it was like 3 stories, and they paid me like $100 a story. And so it was like really you know, a coming full circle kind of thing, I guess. Someone telling you your stuff isn't good enough, and then later, you go back and they publish you. So several years ago, I was on Kickstarter, and I saw a comic book that had a black guy on the cover, and it got my attention. I thought the concept was really cool. It's about a prison for supervillains. Now keep in mind, I used to have 4 different web series on YouTube at one time, and one of my web series was about supervillains who were reforming by working for a security guard company that specifically hired ex-supervillains and gave them jobs so they could become reformed, contributing members of society. Excuse me. So the web series was called Sins of Legend. And I can't remember the name of this comic book that I saw on Kickstarter, but I liked the concept. So I gave them, when you back projects on Kickstarter, you give them some money, and you can get an incentive if you want. Incentives could be anything from a t-shirt, free copies, free tickets to the premiere, something, an interview, a Zoom conversation with the creator and director. I don't know, it depends. Usually you get the really good incentives if you give more money. So like if there's a comic book that's coming out, for example, if you give them like, maybe if you give them like a gang of money, like a couple of hundred, they might give you like an entire volume, a collection of something, some free posters, and So my incentive was having a character of my creation featured on a cover or a cameo. I think it was a cover. And somewhere along the line, down the line, I said, these guys do really good work. I need to maybe have them illustrate some work for me. So that's what happened. And we went on Kickstarter, and we raised money for my comic book. Well, it was a joint Kickstarter, because it was another artist and writer who had a comic book out about a wrestler. So we raised $2,000 in 31 days for the comic book. And the comic book that I was publishing, that first comic book that I published, was Dragon Manx. It's about a superhero who's an LGBT superhero, black guy with powers that are just kind of like don't really work like they used to. He doesn't really know why. So him and his vampire on off on again lover, they are staying in Detroit, Michigan, while he's trying to figure out how to get his life together. But this character, it's kind of like a Batman, Doctor Strange kind of character, I guess, because he has like a magical background. So he's not the typical superhero. I don't even know if Doctor Strange really qualifies as a superhero. I mean, does Constantine qualify as a superhero? Anyway, Dragon Manx typically deals with monsters, demons, things that go bump in the night, like Hellboy. He's dealing with stuff that would, characters like Superman generally don't deal with vampires and werewolves, ghosts, uh, demonically possessed people, um, rogue gods. So I ended up publishing two more comic books. Gerbilla, which was a character I used to draw when I was in fifth grade, is about a gerbil that turns big and she shoots lasers out of her eyes with like lightning, and she has like a scorpion tail. I always loved kaiju. I've always had a big fascination with dinosaurs and Godzilla. And I always, thought it would be cool to have I used to raise gerbils when I was a kid, so that's where, obviously some of this comes from. Gerbils are really cool, by the way. They're totally illegal here in California. It's some stupid law. So gerbils are really cool. They're like rats, but they're rodents. They stand up on their hind legs like kangaroo, but they're really, really cool. I didn't have any bad experiences with gerbils at all. I also used to have rats, mice, hamsters. I had a rabbit, lizards. I like the critters. Fur babies. All that. I had a baby chicken when I was a kid. I had a snapping turtle at one point. Huge. Scared the crap out of my stepmother. And so Gerbilla was, that was really like a dream come true, getting that published. And the other comic book I did was called Gamer Granny. It's about a grandmother who plays video games. She plays them very well. She just kind of like inadvertently gets involved in video games. She plays them so well, in fact, she starts winning tournaments. And she keeps it secret from her family, and she ends up getting trapped inside of a video game universe. So like a Tron or what was that other movie there? Ready Player One, I guess it was like a video game land where she has to fight this evil AI that's kind of going crazy. So this is maybe I need to turn off my background, but see if I can show this there when I disappear. But anyway, this is the cover for Gamer Granny, and she's on the cover. She's flying on a dragon with some of her relatives, I guess, in the background. Here's Gerbilla, number 1. This is a variant cover, I think. It's been a while since I really looked at these. This is Dragon Manx number 1. This is the original cover, but there were variant covers for this, and the price is like really expensive. It's like, why is it like so expensive? And the publisher was like, well, the cost of printing is, and that's, I guess that was I always wondered why comic books and magazines were so expensive, and now I know, because it's a lot of things are just digital unless you order physical, and I totally understand why now. So anyway, these comic books, since I discovered AI, the magic of AI, which I know a lot of people hate, I'll get to that in a second. I had this idea of going back, republishing these books, and using AI, because I saw what ChatGPT could do for me, and it's amazing. So I've been playing around with AI, just learning it. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. For me, especially as a writer who doesn't draw that well, but it helps me realize my visions, and and it also, I don't have to spend a lot of money hiring artists, so it levels the playing field. Now I know almost every Uber and Lyft driver, pretty much every Uber or Lyft driver I've had the pleasure of riding with has voiced their concerns about AI. Cars driving themselves, of course, is going to affect their jobs. I know that companies like Microsoft have laid off a lot of people because of AI, and the prices of AI chips is affecting the video game and computer market, and people are losing jobs and stuff, and people are always losing jobs, really. Now, like I said, I've been playing around with AI, learning how to use it, posting cool stuff, some of my creations, testing it out. And I watched Wonder Man on Disney Plus the other day. I enjoyed it. I mean, if I had to rate it out of a 10, I would probably give it like a 7.5. I mean, I thought it was good. I liked some, as someone who has done film and knows quite a bit about, this industry. I'm a pop culture aficionado. I mean, I'm into all of this stuff. So it was like really speaking to me. It was really preaching to me. Some of the stuff that, maybe a lot of the stuff might be boring. Maybe some people won't get it. I mean, I tried to not read a lot of the reviews, especially, maybe I'll read some of the stuff later, because I know there's a lot of hate. Like, why is he black? He's white. Like, and he's like, you cared about the character before? No, you did not. You didn't even know who the hell Wonder Man was. All of a sudden, it's a big deal. It doesn't matter. If anything, maybe to make the character more interesting. God forbid if they try to do something, take the character in a different direction and make it more appealing. Anyway, so I really wasn't all that fond of the costume. I'm not saying it was bad or anything. So I used AI to make like a little redesign of the costume. Something I thought, it was a little cool, little innocent thing, and I posted it on Instagram. And it went into my threads. And let me tell you, boy, did I get roasted. I got roasted yesterday. They ripped me a new one. People came for me. You would have thought that I went to their village, burned everything, burned the heart-shaped herb, took all the women and children and sold them into slavery, or, sex workers or something. I mean, just the hate. It was like sharks smelling blood in the water. It was just all the comments. You suck, man. What the hell are you doing that for? You're a loser. And one person just was like, F you. I mean, I'm like, dude, man, I don't even know you. Why the hell, what did I ever do to you? I mean, it was just endless, man. And it really did hurt. I mean, I'm not even going to lie. And somebody messaged me and said, I know maybe you don't understand, a lot of people losing jobs and everything. And, people don't like AI. And I know that. I knew people didn't like AI. But I ain't made who did I make lose? I mean, I got a job as a security guard, okay? Somebody out there don't have this job because I got it. I've had this job for 18 years. I go to the store and I buy the last baby spinach pack. Somebody didn't get that. Does that make me a bad person? I mean, it's a ripple effect in everything that you do. And I think, I understand, believe me, I understand the concern. But sometimes people will take something, they'll jump on something because it's trending, or they just become fanatics. I mean, this one guy was, I was like, one guy was like, why are you lying about, you lying? This, just, and I was like, what are you talking about? I just took a little redesign and I was doing for fun. And he's like, dude, everything on your page is AI. And I'm like, dude, I've been on Instagram for years and I've just started playing around with AI a few months ago. What are you talking about? I mean, I'm into pop culture. My social media is video games, comic books, TV shows, music. It's, I promote my little podcast that I do. I talk about my work. It was just character assassination. And it's just like, and I understand why some people quit social media, man. It was just brutal. And this one guy was like, you need to learn Photoshop. And you don't need that shit. I mean, I was just like, oh my God. I mean, these people are something else. So I mean, I think I was just in shock. I talked to my other half. He doesn't live here in the U.S. unfortunately, but he's been very supportive. I mean, he always seems to know the right thing to say, and just encouraged me to just keep doing what I'm doing, and just not let the the hate get to me, man, because I think it's easy to jump on board something. I'm like, there are a lot of things in this world that you should be angry about, and I posted this on Instagram, like, you look at the economy, pollution, habitats disappearing, homelessness. We don't have money for education and building, but we always have money for wars and for prisons, and and just the crime. So many things. A looming pandemic, possibly. I've heard. People are mad about ICE. All these things, man. All these things you should be taking to the streets and getting angry about. And you want to come after me for posting something about Wonder Man, and like I'm putting people out of their jobs and just doing something. I mean, it's nasty, man. And I'm just saying, all my interactions with people have not been bad, but man, I've had a lot of interactions with bad people, and I think I definitely can say, and I can probably speak for most people. Most of us have probably got some mental wounds dealing with bad people, because there's a lot of bad people out there, a lot of like really bad people that are just messed up, people that should probably get some kind of therapy or something. I mean, I like to believe in the good, the potential for good, and most of us, I like to believe almost anyone can be saved or helped. But the internet is, you just open to everything, and people can just come and just say whatever they want and not be held accountable. And man, I know my parents were rough on me sometimes, and sometimes I feel angry. But man, when I don't know what kind of life some of these people have, man, that they could just be so full of just venom. And but there's sometimes the world can be a scary place, man. There's a lot of people out here that will just, I don't know, their priorities are just wrong. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I just think it's ridiculous, and maybe anything new that's coming along. I know Marvin Gaye, he talked about in some, how does he say? Basically, every generation deals with, with new and emerging things, and then there's resistance, and sometimes things, they just kind of fade away, and then some things, they are gradually accepted and they become a part of everything of society. AI can be like anything else. It can be misused. It can be, but it can also be a great tool. It can. It's like anything. A gun is a terrible weapon, but it sometimes it can be a lifesaver, I guess. That's not the best example, but when you read comic books, for example, you have some people that have powers, and they use their powers for good, and you have people that use their powers for bad. It's the same thing with AI, I think. So what I want to do with AI is learn how to improve my work, and even I want to redo my comics. I want to redo the artwork for my comics, and I want to do cartoons and stuff. Now, I don't have a lot of money. I have hired people to do stuff for me, obviously, but man, that could save us so much money. And I think that the ChatGPT makes my work, it makes the artwork pop. And I paid people for my stuff, so I don't know, man. People don't know my story, and they judge. And I guess people are always gonna judge and have something to say and give an opinion, even when you don't ask it. But I can understand, but at the same time, some of y'all need to chill. You go too far with some things. That's all I'm saying. So I will be talking more about AI and some of the stuff that I've done with it. But I gotta go. I cannot believe that 24 minutes went by so fast. I guess I do talk a lot. It is 9:50. I think that my computer's a little fast. I have just enough time to finish some more of my coffee and this donut that I have here that I get from my favorite donut place in the whole universe, California Donuts, which is right beside my apartment building. Basically, I've been eating these donuts since '97. Have to sneak out there late at night though, otherwise you have to stand in line since they blew up. But yeah, I have some really cool stuff that I want to talk about and what I want to show. And if anyone's keeping track of my social media, I posted some stuff. But yeah, I definitely will be using AI to help me. You know, so it's going to be a journey, just like with anything. But I will continue. I will always continue to work with artists. It's not like I'm not gonna work with regular people. I mean, I'm a writer. I want to get back into drawing again too, and then maybe the AI can help me. But that's it for now. But I just wanted to just talk about that situation because it just blew my mind. So I just stopped looking at the comments. I'm just gonna just not, feed into all that stuff, man. I guess it's like Whoopi Goldberg said years ago. Sometimes you got to unplug yourself from everything that's going on. Otherwise, it's just like, you got to take a step back. And maybe I now understand why some people just don't do social media at all. Food for thought.